So iDubbbz is trending on Twitter yet again due to another controversial video he just uploaded, this time apologizing for, in his own words, being cruel and bigoted in his old YouTube series that he made 6 years ago called Content Cop. Unlike the previous video with Froggy Fresh though, the video doesn't have majority dislikes and the discourse around this apology from iDubbbz is much more split down the middle, but ironically enough considering what iDubbbz says in that video, the toxicity surrounding the discussion of this topic is absolutely insane, to the point where Cr1tikal, who had a pretty middle of the road take on the iDubbbz video, disagreeing with some things and agreeing with others, got people really mad to the point where the video has almost 30k dislikes, and there's tweets on Twitter about the video with thousands of likes, saying stuff such as, "New Cr1tikal video is dog shit. He claims iDubbbz old content didn't contribute to toxic behavior on the internet. These pasty-ass white idiots will never understand how cancer the internet was in 2015 to 2018 as a black person, directly because of iDubbbz leafy etc. old content. I mean, sorry, but as someone who went to a 90% white school in 2016 to 2020, I'm telling you firsthand that that sort of content had a very large effect on the things kids said and did, laughing my ass off. That shit was AIDS. It was cancer. I do not wish to return to that era of the internet, and it was even worse for me because I was already hyper online and into politics and all that even back then, lol." Caseytron responds by saying, "He comes off as tone deaf, and like he missed the point entirely. Even if iDubbbz didn't say slurs in a hateful way, he can feel shame for throwing around hurtful words so freely without thinking of himself as a racist. I don't think the video comes off like he felt like he needed to issue an apology. He just wanted to." Benny B says, "Only 5 minutes into Cr1tikal's take about iDubbbz apology, and it's the worst take ever. He deadass said it wasn't harmful to anyone, but the people he targeted in his videos, and that he doesn't really think the apology was really warranted, even his commenters disagree. Like, why did he say this? I'm actually like at a loss for words."
Point is, he wasn't happy with the content he made or the person he was, and now he's trying to apologize for the videos he made. And I, once again, have to completely disagree with the way he looks at it. I feel like his perspective on it is very warped by the way the internet has evolved over the years. The way he talks about this content makes it sound like he used to fucking murder puppies for these videos, which it was never that extreme. I very much would consider it edgy. It was 2016 edginess in all of its glory. That was entirely the brand. And for its time, it lived peacefully. You know, all four nations, water, earth, fire, air, lived together in harmony with all of this edginess going on. Now, obviously, times have changed, and he has changed. He's gotten older. He's in his 30s now. In your 30s, it's not exactly entertaining to just be spamming slurs for shock humor. I don't find that entertaining, and he doesn't either. So it's totally fine to want to distance yourself from making content like that. But I don't think it was a mistake that he made those videos. Like, they're not hurtful, nor do I really think they're damaging. Now, you could make an argument that they were hurtful to the people they were about, like the content cop on Tana or Leafy or any of that. You could say, like, you know, he hurt their feelings or sent harassment their way, which may have been a mental burden on them, and you could feel bad about that, I suppose. But at the end of the day, I don't think the goal of his content was ever to be hurtful or damaging. He was just trying to entertain and using edginess as shock humor, which for its time was acceptable online. Now, whether or not you think that's okay that it was ever acceptable, that's a different argument for a different day. But the point is, the point of his content wasn't to be hateful or hurtful. He really was just trying to entertain. At least that's how I and the majority of people viewed it. So I just don't think that the apology is really warranted. You can explain, like, I just don't like making that content anymore, so I won't. And be like, hey, I even regret making that content because it's kind of cringe now. That's all fine, but to think that it is this huge, massive problem, like you made an unforgivable mistake, is a little weird to me.
Benny B continues by saying, "While I'm not necessarily sure how I feel about iDubbbz, he absolutely did the right thing by denouncing it and taking accountability for the damage he's done. Charlie's commenters are even saying how the content encouraged them to be hateful and bigoted. Unbelievable video. And this is within the first 5 to 6 minutes of a 22-minute video from Charlie. Dude." They then show a screenshot of the follow-up video Charlie made and say, "You've got to be kidding me." Yeah, one more YouTuber off my list, bruh. He's saying what he said was misconstrued. Please shut the fuck up. They were your words. It wasn't being edgy, as you keep calling it. It was encouraging bigotry. And he's still doubling down on iDubbbz, saying he shouldn't feel weighted down by his old content or feel that he created that edgy internet culture. He should feel bad about that. And he did largely contribute? Yeah, nah, that's a wrap. Nobody ever said iDubbbz did that shit from a place of hatred or bigotry. We're saying he contributed to it within internet culture by telling people it was okay or making it into a joke, which is what the apology is about. Muting because I want to move on. But as a final thought, if what you got from this is you were still holding on to things he did years ago, 1. You are purposely missing the point. 2. The apology from iDubbbz was mostly to the minority groups he hurt. 3. Learn to read between the lines. Bulwark15 quote tweets Benny B and says, "What exactly is wrong with Charlie's argument? His take of iDubbbz having the right to change his content while also massively overreacting with his self-inflicted guilt trip is probably the most reasonable opinion anyone gave so far. Like, he could have just made content in a new style without going on a digital tour of self-flagellation. Half of the people partaking in this discourse were barely old enough to know what an iPad is in 2016, so arguing over the time period is pointless anyway. Most of the stuff people say about each other on here is way worse than any content cop." Chariot responds to Benny B by saying, "I love the phenomenon of Zoomers being unable to articulate an argument for a reasonable point that they disagree with, so they just resort to going, 'Huh? What? What are you talking about?' You could press one for hours and not a thoughtful word would come out of their mouth." Kuzi Constanza says, "My increasingly favorite Zoomer response to normal, reasonable arguments, 'Huh? What? Buh?' Never beating the illiteracy allegations. None of these people are actually iDubbbz fans. They just hop on every topic like this with pitchforks because their #1 priority in life is to not get made fun of for having bios like this." 4Quest quote tweets Benny B and says, "The white man who wasn't affected by what iDubbbz was saying and didn't see the real life impact he was having on kids back then gave an unnuanced take about the situation? Pretends to be shocked." Dino Nuggets responds to Benny B by saying, "I'll be one of the first to admit iDubbbz was one of the main reasons I fell into the alt-right pipeline and ended up getting suspended for school for how out-of-pocket and bigoted I was. Anyone who thinks iDubbbz did not have a serious negative effect on youth is simply wrong. When I was 14, 5 to 6 years ago, I would casually say every slur in the book, actively name-call fellow minority students, and more. Now I found myself in many of those minorities. But that doesn't repair the damage I did as a child, while I was being influenced by these YouTubers." ER responds to Dino Nuggets by saying, "Turns out this was the alt-right pipeline all along," showing iDubbbz reviewing a jar of pickles in a sewer. Rick Johnson says, "White people seeing moist critical hate." Amp Lemon says, "If iDubbbz no longer wants to contribute to a culture of harassment, he should probably take down the Froggy response vid, where he demonstrably led Froggy's harassment over the past 2 weeks. You talk about moving on, but continue the exact behavior you were apologizing for. Unlisting the content cops was a good decision in my opinion. At least he's honest about his intentions. I'm just baffled how he spent 15 minutes flagellating himself over how cruel his videos were, and apparently sees nothing wrong with what he did to Froggy just 2 weeks ago." Nicholas Diorio says, "iDubbbz is acting like a mass shooter shouted, 'Bad unboxing!' before committing a racially motivated attack." Tipster says, "Just saw the new iDubbbz video, and it couldn't come out at a more fitting time. As we grow older, our views change, and with those changes, we seek to grow as people. I know not everyone understands it, but it's just one of those things we all go through at some point in our lives. In short, I respect iDubbbz's choice to better himself. Even as someone who once found his older, edgier content to be entertaining, I have a lot of respect for someone who wishes to grow as a person, especially when everyone around you is telling you you're wrong for doing so. It takes guts, man. Best of luck to ya, iDubbbz." Glory says, "Famous for saying NF slur combo, then donates the proceeds of the most affected by his rhetoric. It's a black trans charity. N-word, F slur. Pretty funny stuff, iDubbbz, but a little out of pocket, don't you think?" Boogie reacts to the video by saying, "Y'all think the beating Jordy gave me was bad? Check out the beating iDubbbz is giving to his career. Watching this video, I feel so bad for this guy. He has lost all his self-confidence. He has lost all his self-respect. He is losing his audience. He is losing his career. I walked a similar path, and I hated the result. results. I hope he gets better. Cap'n Koku Punch responds by saying, yeah, well, I mean, I don't blame him for changing. At least who he was. The old iDubbbz was a jaded, cynical asshole. Going through life like that sucks dick. His choices after, however, have been ass. Boogie responds, I'm glad he has decided to stop being so negative and stop using slurs, etc. I just wish she'd go back to having fun again, no matter what the new iDubbbz considers to be fun. CM Chunk responds to Boogie by saying, what am I missing? I didn't think the video was bad at all. Boogie responds, in my honest opinion, I just miss the old iDubbbz. Not the negative stuff or slurs. Never liked that stuff. I miss him eating pickles in sewers. I miss him filming with friends. I miss him filming on trail cams. I want him to have fun again and share that fun with his audience. Punished Waffle then shows that Boogie retweeted that tweet I read earlier about the black trans charity, as well as the tweets I just read out of Boogie talking about the iDubbbz video, and captions it by saying, he sucks so much lol. After this backlash, Boogie then tweets out, I deleted most of my tweets about the iDubbbz apology video. People took it wrong, I guess. I still think apology videos are dumb from personal experience. It's better to show the growth than to tell people about it. The Quartering says, iDubbbz made millions being a complete asshole, dropping the N-word, moralizing how it was cool to say. Now he's pulling the ladder up behind himself in an apology video and disavowing his fans who liked it. It's okay to grow up. We all do. Stop waiting for his redemption arc. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that both iDubbbz and Ethan Klein, two people who made millions on edgy harassment content, in their words, suddenly got woke and disavowed it all right around the time all that kind of content got demonetized by YouTube. Wavy Websurf reacts to the iDubbbz video by saying, bro, this is painful. Turkey Tom says, I just want to see iDubbbz run around eating pickles in the sewer again. Dick Masterson says, iDubbbz didn't grow up or mature. He abused Froggy, labeled him a Nazi, gaslighting other influencers into blackballing him. He tried to do it to Sam Hyde. He's the same bullying, vindictive fuck. He just switched teams. Stop believing what people say. Look at what they do. Dapper Bear says, I need folks to shut the fuck up about how Joji and iDubbbz moved away from their content similarly. Joji still references his old content through his music, and acknowledges fans who come to his shows dressed as Pink Guy. Ian is on a weirdly forced apology tour, like he was the Hitler of YouTube. It's fine to want to move away from your old content. You have every right to do so, and you shouldn't be beholden by others to stay stagnant. But it doesn't take a genius to see something seems a little off with Ian lately. You were just upset he grew and changed as a person. He makes fun of people you dislike now. Don't give him that shit. Zerka says, it seems that iDubbbz N-word pass has expired. He has deleted his past vids where he made millions of dollars off dropping hard R's. As chief officer of the word police, I regret to inform you that this is not enough. You will need to fire up a time machine and kneel inside. Hassan Anabi says, a lot of old iDubbbz fans online upset that he has changed for the better. I'm proud of him for taking ownership over the toxic and racist aspects of his old content. I'm glad he has grown to have a more empathetic outlook. There's real resilience to change in most online spaces. His edgy fans will now cynically try to prove that he hasn't changed at all by clipping his new content out of context, by reposting all his old stuff. Same people who cry about cancel culture and SJWs behaving exactly like that. Shoeonhead says, if I didn't watch iDubbbz years ago and only saw his new apology video, I would have assumed he used to be the leader of a literal white nationalist organization and killed several people with his bare hands. Rusty Cage responds by saying, remember, he was the one who started edgy culture on the internet. Stephen A. Search says, I'm in the minority here, but I really like the new iDubbbz video. It's clearly pissed off a lot of the edgelords, aka the people he's calling out. I will always believe that an influencer is responsible for the audience they cultivate, and it's good for him to acknowledge that. Casey Tron says, okay, I'll say it. I think some of the people who aren't receiving iDubbbz video well are somewhat telling on themselves, and their inability to acknowledge past behaviors. Ablina Sabrina responds by saying, what I liked most was rather than just saying sorry and other nice words, he put this video out after he started implementing positive changes. A lot of kind and sweet creators are genuinely proud to work with him. He's walking the walk. The Act Man says, hearing iDubbbz condemn his old content cop videos is fucking wild. Man was one of the few that had the balls to do whatever it took to call out bullshit on YouTube, and now he apologizes for that? I don't get it, man. Chariot TV says, I keep thinking about the moment in the iDubbbz video where he talks about a transgender fan coming up to him and saying, I know you probably don't like transgender people, but because that's really how it feels a lot of the time as a trans person. And that's why if you aren't transgender yourself, you might not realize how meaningful it can be to hear people just casually acknowledge your identity or your humanity. In that regard, it's actually a really cool video because it communicates that fact. Max Mofo Burner says, come on Mr. iDubbbz, it's time to return home. Showing a picture of him doing cosplay with anything for views in Max Mofo. They continue by saying, content cop? Drama? What are you talking about? It's time to set chat on fire again. Zeep Hipstered says, iDubbbz talking about his old videos, showing a PSA from Warner Brothers that says, the cartoons you are about to see are products of their time. They may depict some of the ethnic and racial prejudices that were commonplace in American society. These depictions were wrong then and are wrong today. While the following does not represent the Warner Brothers view of today's society, these cartoons are being presented as they were originally created, because to do otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. Omni says, my white mutual's looking at me after iDubbbz apologized for the N-word video. Okay, I watched both Charlie's videos, and I see why the Jimmies were wrestled. Don't agree with everything said, but most of his takes were reasonable. Also, Twitter is overdramatic. Seem to be looking for any reason to jump on the Charlie hate bandwagon. The fake outrage is weird. Lucari says, what a nice video from iDubbbz owning up to his past mistakes, while being respectful to his older fans. I'm sure Twitter edgelords will have an intelligent and rational reaction to this video. Mudar says, I just want to see iDubbbz shit on Kickstarters. Vosh says, I wish iDubbbz had more faith in himself. Personal growth / introspection is great, and it takes serious strength to come to terms with himself the way he has, but it does suck to see him beat himself up so much. Personal growth doesn't have to be about guilt / beating yourself up / self-flagellation. It can be about joy and triumph and celebration, if you want it to. He's a funny and smart dude. I hope he keeps it going for a long time. Anyway, yeah, most of the people freaking out over his vid are unempathetic psychos, proving his point about how his content used to attract terrible people who don't care about the point or comedy and just want an excuse to be edgy. Nuxtaku says, wishing iDubbbz the best, but damn, this was the most painful thing I've watched since his last video. Rad says, 25-year-old men in iDubbbz comments saying, I looked up to you, man. Zach shows a picture of Sensitive Society's video on the iDubbbz apology and captions it by saying, iDubbbz, I'm not proud of my past, and I want to take accountability for the pain I've caused and hate I've enabled. YouTube racist. Sensitive Society quote tweets him and says, people think I actually give a fuck? Of course it's a Twitter freak disagreeing with me. Invalid. Quentin Reviews says, so if anyone wants the iDubbbz drama recapped, years ago iDubbbz made a video that was basically about how white people should always be able to say the N-word if it's in a context where they think it's funny. Now he thinks he was wrong and he decided to take it back. That's it. The crux of the video is him talking about how he's developed more empathy over the last few years and how he now feels his older videos are cruel, even if the topics are people he still dislikes. Of course, that's a nuance you won't see on drama Twitter, where we're all 180 characters. Tomoko-chi responds by saying, yeah, I don't understand why I see drama about this guy pop up. I never watched his stuff, but from what I can gather, he was like, I was a shithead and saw the kind of people my content was cultivating, so I've stopped doing that. Just sounds like growth to me? Quentin responds, in his video, he says it was more, I didn't think I was a shithead, but meeting my fans was like a mirror being held up, and it made me question my choices. Now someone else who recapped iDubbbz video in a very different way was Willie Macshow, who said, iDubbbz gains career by making fun of people on the internet. iDubbbz gets made fun of on the internet. iDubbbz realizes being made fun of on the internet isn't fun. There, summed up the video for ya. This guy was 27 when he made those videos and acts like he was 15. Def Noodles responds to Willie by saying, I think people are too stuck on what's said in the video rather than what it shows. iDubbbz describes how over the years he had experiences with real life people that gave him a broader perspective of the effect of his content on his audience's perception of themselves and him. It's a very vulnerable representation of a creator's personality, psychology, and philosophical development. People changing and evolving is absolutely normal. It's what you hope everyone experiences. Learning from your mistakes is as fundamental to growth as water to plants. On the other side, if doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity, then refusing to evolve should be seen the same way. I think it's important to uplift creators when they are willing to be vulnerable and right their wrongs. It's much easier to cower from that. Dunking on someone for pursuing what they see as a more positive impact in the world is counterproductive, and honestly, some weak ass shit. Anisa responds to him by saying, thanks for understanding. It was really refreshing to read this right now, to be honest. Anisa also responds to Willie Macshow directly after he shows iDubbbz blocked him and says, if I'm being honest, you were just annoying, so I'm probably going to block you too. See ya, brother. Anisa also tweets out, I'm sorry, but commentary channels and blue checks give me way too much credit. Even if I could, what would even be the benefit of me ruining the career of the person I'm financially and legally tied to? Now going over some of the reactions from the people who had content cops made on them, Keemstar quote tweets Willie Macshow and says, this. Leafy does a live stream talking about the situation titled, the most racist man in America apologizes to black people. And then Tana responds to a fan, curious about her response to iDubbbz by saying, canceled podcast as soon as possible. Crazy time. Wonder if he'd ever come on. I have a lot to say. Definitely never thought this would happen. iDubbbz responds, I would. And then Tana responds, messaged you. Colossal's Crazy also reaches out to iDubbbz when he says, says, iDubbbz, be the first guest on our podcast. We are the same age and we made the same content. It'll be an interesting conversation, and I will be harsh but fair. Your channel, my channel, our podcast, I really don't care. Let me know. And then iDubbbz kind of let him know when he tweeted out, I welcome opinions about my apology from people and communities whom the apologies were directed at. That is where my care starts and ends. FaZe Banks responds by saying, seems like you are at minimum starting to like the person you are / are becoming, which is the only thing that actually matters. Fuck that noise, brother. Trust yourself. iDubbbz responds, FaZe wanks. Aaron responds to iDubbbz by saying, trans person here. I was a fan of your videos at the time. I found them funny as an edgy teenager, but looking back at them, they weren't great and contributed to a hostile environment towards minorities. I'm glad you were moving past it now, and I have a lot of respect for you. Michael Alberto responds to iDubbbz by saying, as a member of the Afro-Hispanic community, apology not accepted. And then he shows that he got blocked by iDubbbz. Northern Hex says, as a gay man, I don't accept your apology. Make another one. And then shows that he too also got blocked by iDubbbz when he captions his tweet by saying, yes, he still meant the second half of his catchphrase. And that's about it for the discussion on Twitter around iDubbbz apologizing for his content cops. Personally, I just think this apology video is a little too late. Like, iDubbbz hasn't been making content cop for 6 years now, and he hasn't been saying slurs in his videos for, I think, at least 4 years. I'm not really sure the exact time frame on that, but regardless, it's been a long time. I guess it's good that he's apologizing now, if he really regrets that, but I don't know, man. All of this, like, heated discussion over content that was released 6 years ago, like, it just feels so crazy to get mad at anybody involved in this, whether that be iDubbbz or Charlie for giving his opinion, or the edgy teenagers of 2016 who said the N-word because of iDubbbz but are now adults, to the point where you're dropping watching them as content creators. Really, like, that thread on Charlie I thought was completely insane. And this stuff is so old that I'm personally more interested in hearing an apology for something that happened recently, like how he treated Froggy Fresh, but I'm sure he will apologize for that sometime in 2029. But I would love to hear what you guys have to say about all of this in the comment section below, so go ahead and chat it up if you feel like you have something you want to say. But as you do that, if you're not subbed, I would appreciate if you do subscribe, because I cover Twitter drama all the time, and by doing so, you won't miss any future uploads. You can also check out any dramas that I've covered that you might have missed by clicking one of the videos on the end card right now. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in another video.